Well, the day began with the news of Henry Kissinger's death. Wednesday at his home in Connecticut. Abrasive and ruthlessly ambitious, he towered over post-World War II U.S. foreign policy like no one else. As Secretary of State to Presidents Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford, Kissinger was a master tactician. Critics, however, faulted his disregard for human rights and democracy in the Vietnam War and elsewhere. For Henry Kissinger, ending the divisive Vietnam War was a top priority. President Nixon campaigned on achieving peace with honor. Upon taking office, he and Kissinger began a policy of Vietnamization that would force the South Vietnamese allies to take on a larger role so that U.S. troops could withdraw. Seeking to strengthen the U.S. hand ahead of peace talks, Nixon and Kissinger authorized a 1969-1970 bombing campaign in Laos and Cambodia. It was aimed at disrupting rebel movement into South Vietnam. The bombing, not authorized by the U.S. Congress, was kept secret from the public. It did not halt the infiltration, though, but killed thousands of civilians and helped spawn the genocidal Khmer Rouge. Kissinger traveled several times to Paris, at first discreetly for talks with North Vietnamese negotiator Le Duc Tho. An agreement was finally signed in January of 1973 that effectively ended U.S. military operations there. The two men were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, although only Kissinger accepted it. Showing his cold calculus, taped conversations with Nixon revealed that Kissinger had fully expected South Vietnam to fall after the Accords. Kissinger also turned a blind eye to Pakistan's mass atrocities as Bangladesh won independence in 1971. He believed the U.S. interest was keeping Islamabad as the quiet go-between with China. More than the failure of U.S. diplomacy to act in a harmonious manner, it was the strategic assumptions of Henry Kissinger that thwarted any constructive role for Washington in preventing the crisis. Now, as per the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, he doubted India's capacity to wage and win a war in East Pakistan, which is what it was known as back then, and cut it off from West Pakistan. Also, he was overly optimistic about China coming to Pakistan's help by opening another front and the Soviet Union reluctance under U.S. pressure. Neither of the two happened.